June is Men's Health Awareness Month, and during that time, there's also a focus on men's mental health and awareness. And we know that over the last couple of years, there's definitely been a bigger focus as relates to Black men. And so, one of the things that we want to do here during this interview is give others opportunity to hear from Black men and the range of experiences and how we basically navigate through mental health concerns, other life stressors, and how we basically found a way to healing and triumph, because that's what it's all about, and sharing the stories. So I'm going to go in and jump right on in there and ask you, can you tell us a little bit about your mental health journey?
Well, we had spoke previously before, but I'll give the synopsis. Well, it's been a great journey. I'm currently 32 years old. I received a diagnosis for narcissistic personality disorder back in August of 2022. So just been navigating that. So I feel honestly my mental health journey really started in about 2020 because everything prior, with culture and society, it's not really big for men, especially Black men, to focus on our mental health. So I felt like I was a little late to the party when it comes to, really diving into the whole journey of it all. I mean, because I was pretty much on autopilot for quite some time. If it wasn't something that was glaring, then I felt like it was okay. And a lot of the issues that I was experiencing, it normally was due to other people in my mind. But in reality, it was me. Starting from manifesting all of my own experiences. I'm the source of all of those interactions. So I definitely say it's been a journey, and since 2022, it's been great. I've delved into anger management. I've dove into therapy, Reiki, all different types of modes and mechanisms of coping and tools. So it's been a blessing, but definitely been a ride so far.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up that whole point. We talk about, I feel sometimes, especially as a Black man and in our society, we just go. We're on autopilot, as you said. It's like we're feeling these things, not necessarily knowing what exactly it is, just knowing we got to go. We got to keep going, got to keep providing for our family, got to keep getting up, going to work, and whatever issues, if it isn't something glaring or literally causing us some serious issues, we just keep pushing through it. And it's always, that thing where I gotta go, I gotta go, I gotta go. We're a go, go, go society. So when you mentioned the whole thing back in 2020 with the diagnosis, I also thought about something else that happened in 2020, which is of course COVID. And so there is
Correct.
another big thing as relates to everyone's mental health and the different things and the trauma that we all experience. Aside from that happening in 2020, what was there a particular event leading up to diagnosis that made you want to go seek help, to ask more questions, to talk to someone about it? What was that what was the thing? Was there an event that kind of preceded that?
Yes, correct. It was really stemmed from my intimate relationships, specifically the mothers of my children. Just falling in some of those, vicious cycles of, hurt and destruction and, trauma and just things that I was inflicting onto my family. That at the time I really had no real sense of awareness that, well, I did have an awareness that it was wrong, but I just didn't care. You know what I mean? And getting to a point where the narcissistic personality, I didn't necessarily have any real understanding or, background with that outside of what you heard from media and, in the news and whatnot. So I took it with a grain of salt. But it wasn't until one of the mothers of my children really sat down with me because she's big on the mental health, you know, agenda being that, or advocacy being that she's someone that experiences autism. She's on the Asperger's spectrum. So she, is a extreme advocate for mental health and brought up the symptoms as far as, the signs of, hey, you may be experiencing this. And like most narcissists, I denied it and flipped it back on her, like, no, that's you. But then once the relationship ended and I got into a really low point in my life where there were certain behaviors I felt were outside of my control. And I felt like a passenger in my own body at times, being that once I, got into that, triggered state, that I would see myself do certain things that my conscience would know that it's not the right thing, but yet my body is still reacting and still moving and doing those, negative behaviors. So it was really scary. And it got to a point where I had to look myself in the mirror, and either I was going to go up and figure it out, or I was going to spiral out and continue, into oblivion. So I, got, I'm a spiritual person. So the Lord, he grabbed me by my boot tails and told me like, hey man, it's either now or the highway, and I chose now, and I'm definitely grateful. So yeah, it was just the end of that relationship, and then as well as at that time, I was bringing in some of my children, my most recent children. So it just was I was tired of continuing to perpetuate the same behaviors, and then wondering why it was still happening, because I was dealing with completely other different people, and the common denominator was me. So, I had to figure it out for myself, because I wanted to do better, and I wanted to feel better, and I wanted to be better. So that experience, with the intimate relationships, specifically with, child, and fathering, a lot of things that touched on my past with, the stuff with my dad growing up that I didn't necessarily have, and then those traumas rearing their heads down the line with me being a father and wanting to break the cycle. And I had to figure out a way to do it, because I couldn't do it on my own. So I sought help, and I called my physician and just asked them, if I was a narcissist, how would I get myself treated? How would I get help? And that was the caveat. I had to say if, to still tell my narcissistic mind, like, no, you're not. Like, if, what would I do? So that's pretty much how I mind glitched myself to get to that point. And now here I am today.
Yeah. So that's great. You bring up a point about the accountability and somebody else coming into the picture, kind of bring some things to our attention. One of the things too I wanted to ask you your take on this is, what do you think is one of the big misconceptions about Black men and our mental health?
I feel one of the biggest misconceptions is that we genuinely don't care, that we actually don't give a when in reality we really do. It's just so many different things has preconditioned us to hide that or maneuver that or put it to the side. But if you really sit down and get a brother in a vulnerable space where he feels comfortable and safe to express himself, you'd be pretty darn surprised. Some of the most killers, gangsters, hardest brothers will break down in tears, because they finally had somebody to listen to them and explain it in a way that they can receive, as well as be heard without any judgment. So I feel
Right.
that's the biggest misconception, is that we actually don't really care about it.
Absolutely. And we do care. And like you were saying, having that safe space, that is so important. And a lot of times it's conversations. I used to, you talk about the barbershop, for example. A lot of times that's where most men actually share information in regards to our health, mental health, relationships. All that takes place in the barbershop. It's barbershop talk.
Xbox, video
Yeah,
games. We're homies on chat. We'd be like, "Hey, bro, you
exactly.
tripping?"
It can have that conversation because it feels safe. It's a safe space
Correct.
to talk. And so that was one of the other things that, comes to mind when I talk about therapy or think about it, even my own self with therapy, was that it was a safe space. But getting to that place, getting to that point where, what, it's time for me to make a change. I need to do something. And the faith piece, we are people from faith, people different denominations, things of that nature. But at the end of the day, our belief in God. And that's sometimes something too, I think that is a big piece, because it's almost like we are taught, and in some cases I would say programmed, that, pray about it. You're not praying hard enough. Something's wrong with you. But in actuality, as you just stated, God put someone in place, a therapist, there are Christian counselors, Christian therapists
Yeah,
that can assist
faith
us.
without
Right.
works is dead.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you put it all up to God all you want, but if you ain't out there, you know what I mean? He gonna be like, well, I mean, it's sitting right here waiting for you until you
Right.
crack the egg. You know what I mean? So yeah, absolutely. You gotta meet God halfway.
Absolutely. And that's one of the other things we're talking about, even with therapy. So was there ever any point prior to 2020 where therapy may have been brought up to your mission to you and you felt like,
Never. Honestly, no. Until I got into that relationship, until everything, it was pretty much like you said. Either you give it up to Jesus, or you keep it pushing. Therapy was always associated with white people, medication. I felt like if you go to therapy, they're gonna put you on something, and there you go. And then as well, um, just not seeing too many people that can actually, even if I was to get into it, that can represent me. That has representation of me, my struggles as a black person, as a black man, my struggles as a minority. You know what I mean? A lot of those spaces are filled by people that don't look like me. So even if I was at that time, that was a big detractor as well. So no, it really wasn't a conversation. It wasn't something that was ever really talked about. Like I said, if it wasn't the Lord, then you go ahead and miss me with that.
I definitely believe on the cultural thing. That some people even say, "No, that's white people stuff. That ain't us. We don't do that. We keep it in the house, or you go to church with it. That's it."
Pretty
They're
much.
putting the business out there in the street. That's a white person's thing. But I'm glad to see. I feel like there's been a definitely a pivot in regards to thinking, even in the churches where they're doing a little bit more talking. We progress. We're not where we really need to be.
Exactly.
And I think that cultural piece is another part of it. And when you mentioned the whole thing earlier, as far as the misconception, I think that's another misconception within the community possible as well, is that we don't do that. It's changing. It's
It
changing.
is. It is. Even like you said, the languages associated with it and just the buzzwords people are now starting to speak with, just healing and advocacy, and just words are now starting to become more and more prevalent within our culture. And brothers are starting to be like, hey, what you mean self-care Friday? You know what I mean? Brothers are starting to latch onto it, which I'm all for. I'm all for. And I'm glad that I'm at this space in my life now, so that way I can help situations like this, and spread my knowledge of my experience, as well as just be able to convey to a brother that may be on the fringe, like, hey, you can be mentally sound and still be cool. Like, you know what I'm saying? You ain't got to be no cornball to be mentally stable. You know what I'm saying? You can still be a swaggy individual, but have your mental health in order. You know what I'm saying? You can still be a tough guy, but also have a soft side. You know what I mean? You could be a man, but be sensitive. And these are all concepts and ideologies that were pretty foreign, not just to black men, but to pretty much all men. You know what I mean? For a long extended period of time. But of course, focusing on our society and our culture first, then yeah, it definitely was extremely lacking. So I'm seeing the change, and I'm glad to be pretty much a part of it.
Yeah, it definitely changes. You had mentioned therapy. I wanted to ask you in regards to different tools or resources that you were using during the time of treatment when you went to the doctor, but then also after, like what are some of the things that you do now to maintain that as you continue on? Because it's like our mental health journey isn't a
It's a
destination. We
journey.
don't
It's not a
there.
finite.
But yeah, it's
Yeah, it's not a
constantly.
finite experience. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a ever evolving. So some of the main things that I really lean on are meditation. That's always been something, even before I made the full connection with it with mental health. It was something that I use as just a calming mechanism, as well as fitness. I use that into my whole overarching fitness. Working out, meditation. Channel breathing, all of those types of techniques to just center myself and grounding. I take a step outside, put my feet on the earth, ground. Thing. Like I said, I'm a very spiritual brother, so just and that's even scientific. That ain't even really spiritual. You get some of that good electromagnetic energy, it'll
right.
it'll
Grounding.
move some stuff around up in there. So like that. Also, I love video games. So if I ever feel a moment where I got some real aggression and I don't can't get it out, I hop on the game, blow up some stuff, take it out there. I box. So a lot of mine is physical, because I'm a very physical person. So and then I feel if you expend that energy, my thing was anger. So a lot of people deal with other things, whether it be depression or anxiety, but mine was an extreme volatile anger. So I would just do things to exhaust myself, so that way I don't have the energy to be even angry anymore. So that's one of my biggest coping techniques is just physical movement, and then on the mental side, like I said, the meditation, the deep breathing. I do reading here and there, so I try to supplement a myriad of things, individually, as well as I have a great support system now, which also helps. My mom's has always been great, and she's come along with updating her resume mentally when it comes from being in the boomer generation to, being open to these mindsets and these ideas and, helping me along the way and not being so like, oh, I messed up as a mom because, whatever, X, Y, and Z, because they feel like they're responsible at certain points of the stuff that you went through that was outside of their control. And it's like, nah, mom, you did your best as a mother. You did everything that in my case, she did everything that she was supposed to do. My pop was a lot of the root of that issue, and we've since reconciled. So yeah, really just a lot of physical activity is what I use as a means to, keep myself centered, keep myself grounded, keep myself focused, and keep myself even keeled.
Yes, I think that's the variety piece. For me, I understand same thing as gym, working out, exercise. It does wonders, and I think that's probably too one of the things that is another misconception. Sometimes people think that you go to the doctor or the psychologist, counselor, sit and talk on the couch, as they say, and just tell all your troubles, talk about whatever's going on in life. But there is more to it. It's a ongoing process, and being able to take those tools and apply them. Exercise, meditation is something huge that
I
people
mean,
talk about. Yoga.
yeah, this is your spiritual vehicle. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to take your car to go get it serviced after the check engine light. You know what I mean? Sometimes life, you get into a flow and life happens that way. But, those that are proactive rather than reactive, you will want to get on top of those things as soon as possible. You know what I mean? But a lot of the times, it just falls to a lack of information. You know what I mean? People, they want to do these things, but they don't know where to start. Just like I would want to know how to fix my car or go get it serviced, but I don't know where this check engine light is coming from. I got to go put it into the computer and get a code and blah, 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 blah. And, by the time I get to X, Y, and Z, I'm already got to go to the next day and get ready for work. So I ain't got no time to do X, Y, and Z to make sure I'm good. Like we spoke on earlier, I got bills I got to pay. I got children I got to take care of. I can't take a break. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
that break is going to turn to breaking down, and I ain't got room to break down. You know what I'm saying? Because,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And we talk about us being, black men, we're all different, have different experiences, relate to things differently, process things differently. I have another one of those questions. I kind of asked you a similar question before, but what is one thing that you want other black men to know related to their mental health? If you could speak to somebody dealing with something, or even considering like, hey, I know I kind of need some help. I'm not feeling the best. Something's going on. I don't know what it is.
The, as a man, as a man that identifies as a man, the manliest, most masculine thing you can do is take care of yourself in all facets. So if you are someone that, and most men that have somewhat of a spark in nature. Now, the people that are just lost in the sauce, well, hey, I'll pray for them. You know what I'm saying? But the people that are on the fence that may need that edge, that, specifically when it comes to masculinity, and I feel, this is just my theory, I feel like masculinity is something that's more external for us out here in society. Like with womanhood, that is something I feel is more of a you come to it as a woman. It's pretty much you're there at a certain point and threshold in your life. It's kind of built within. You know what I'm saying? And the way society has created a umbrella for womanhood, it's pretty much ingrained in society that hey, once you can have a kid or da 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 da, you're a woman. Man, that may not be the truth, but it's
Right.
something that people have bought into on a wide spread in society. Now, with man, you have to have an external level of either skill or accomplishment or character or presence to fully be widely accepted, not only for yourself but as a community, as a man. So to get back to that point, in order for a man to fully achieve that, I feel that they have to get in touch with their feminine side of thinking, intuition, and really dive into the more feminine concepts to be able to mash the both elements, the both polarities, the negative, the positive, the female, the male, and being able, because we all have those energies within inside of
Yes.
us. So if we are able to understand both dynamics within them, I feel that's something that can take any man, any person, but specifically a man to the next level. And that's something that I would, express to them, that in order to really grasp the concept of masculinity, you will want to touch into the opposite, and then also, having that full understanding of yourself and how to take care of yourself on all levels, mentally, physically, financially. Because a lot of brothers just go to the financial and the physical, and then they good. They got a fat bank account, they got a nice body, but everything else is, you know what I mean? So,
Right.
and then a lot of people on the outside, they be like, "Hey, yeah, you're doing it, brother.
That's yeah.
You're doing what a man's supposed to do." But their family's in shambles. The people that are around them can't really depend upon them outside of a check, and it's just a lot of stuff that isn't conducive to a healthy environment. So,
Right.
just going back to my original point, just knowing yourself and having a full understanding of how to take care of yourself on all levels is what I feel is what can make a man to the next step.
Yeah, and when you mentioned taking care of yourself, you mentioned the financial piece and physical piece. If even those two pieces are out of whack, it impacts your mental. You
Yes,
know what I'm saying?
correct.
It's all related. So they have to
It's all
start looking
connected.
at totality. Like, okay, it's not just about your physical, your mental is tied in there. When you start talking about your financial, well, there's the stress. There's the other piece with that.
It's the whole thing.
Yes.
And
And
most of it starts internally. You know what I mean? So you got to go within to know yourself, to see what's going on in every other area.
right. And that's what it's about. And then that's one of the things that we wanted to in regards to even with these and hold these interviews is to have those conversations so people can have the opportunity to hear from different people. Because a lot of times, unfortunately, even though we read and see it, we sometimes think we're the only one going through something or experience something like that. You know what I mean? And so that causes people to feel that whole isolation piece or feeling like, you know what, it's not stopping me physically. So I'm just gonna keep on pushing and keep on pressing, which isn't healthy either, as you know we talked about. So I definitely see the importance of looking at it in totality, taking care of oneself, that's the physical as well as the mental. And you mentioned your support system and how important that is, and even as you continue on, what that looks like and developing those for people as we continue through on this journey, because it is a journey. It's not
Yeah.
not a destination. So with that and your journey, we talked about that. What does it mean now for you to be able to share your mental health journey as you've gone through the diagnosis, posts, and things like that? What does it mean to you to be able to share this with others?
Well, it means a lot. It means validation, not for myself, it means validation for certain things that were outside of my control that I can forgive myself for. And as well as it's giving me a reference point to be able to counteract certain behaviors that I felt I didn't have a handle over. Um, so yeah, it just basically, like I said, it means the world. It means a lot to be able to also share my experiences and be able to relate to others, and then also being one of the very very few self-aware narcissists, diagnosed narcissists, because that is one of the least diagnosed personality disorders due to the nature of it. Narcissists don't feel like they need help. They don't feel like there's no problem. They feel like everybody else is the problem except them. So them getting to the point, or us getting to the point of seeking help and realizing that, it usually never happens. A narcissist will die before that happens. They'll normally go a successful life too. They'll have outward success. They'll have all the things that you would think a person should have or need, but internally, in the way that people feel about them, it's not there. And a lot of us go our whole lives without having that awareness. So for myself specifically, it's definitely helped me put myself in a different category to be able to now be a light to not only other people that may be experiencing what I'm experiencing, but also change the narrative, because it was very, very disheartening going online with someone that has my personality disorder, and all the information was geared towards defending yourself, or how to get rid of a narcissist, or how to we're just the vampires of the world, we're just the demons of the world, which I understand our behaviors are very atrocious, that cause a lot of damage and a lot of suffering to a lot of people. And I want to say sorry on all narcissists out there. I apologize. But we're humans too. We're still people too. We still have, desires. We still have, needs and fears and cares. Actually, a lot of those fears, a lot of those needs are extremely heightened. And we put that over with that mask in order to keep people away from our vulnerable side. So I just say that, yeah, it's something that I can do personally to shift the narrative and just, starting that healing and starting that change.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you said that, when we had the conversation before about that, you automatically go to what you've heard. And as you mentioned, you pull up on anything, YouTube, TikTok, whatever, it's how to deal with it, or 5 signs that
Right,
you
right, right. How to go no
all that.
contact, or da 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 da
Yeah.
da da da, or how narcissists are the worst people, how they have no soul, and I've seen it and heard it all. It's yeah, and I understand where they're coming from, and I do, because I was a lot of my actions were very indicative to those things, and I get it, and yeah, it just is tough though, because once you get to that point where, like, how do I change? It's like, well, why should I? You know what I mean?
Right. But it speaks to the importance, like you said, part of healing. Now you able to share your testimony, share your story with others who could be on either side of it. Other side
Exactly.
with somebody or being diagnosed themselves or dealing with it.
Exactly.
Hey, it don't have to be, we don't
Which
have to
I've
negative.
already had those experiences where I pretty much was the narcissist for that person to talk to get that understanding. And they're like, wow, okay, well, if I had known that, then I would look at it in a different perspective and not feel like it was me and my fault, and just know that they were just going through something, and it still wasn't good, but it just gives you a new light to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what a number of things I think as people, I think that's the push and the importance of education, being educated, or actually, or even seeking information to find out a little bit more instead of allowing certain, platforms, different things to educate us or give us,
Correct, correct.
because we a lot of times it's wrong. They're not professionals. They really can't. But
Correct. They just read a couple of books and was like, well, yo, this is what
yeah,
and more power to them. But it could be a lot of things could be misinterpreted, misconstrued, and just misdirected.
absolutely. No, I definitely and can agree and appreciate that. And I'm sure others will be able to definitely appreciate this part of your story as well, and sharing that testimony about that and that diagnosis. We, as mentioned, it's June, Men's Health Month. We talk about the importance of physical, mental, spiritual, all of that, the financial piece as it wraps up into us. But I wanted to ask, as we get ready as we head towards the close of our time, as far as being able to speak here, what is one thing you would like to leave or impart on people in general? There's so many elements to our community. That we have our mothers and fathers, sisters, uncles, aunties, co-workers, different people who play a part in our lives that we bump into, talk to daily on a regular basis. But they are also a part of our story as it relates to our healing. As we talked about the support system, we talked about people who have been able to hold us accountable to certain things, or in some cases, bring some things to our attention. What is one thing that you would like, if there's one point that you would like to end with as it relates to your journey and sharing your story?
It's okay to give up. It's okay to give up sometimes. Like, everything is always so predicated on strength and resiliency and determination and grit and pick yourself up. Yeah, like, sometimes it's okay just to say, I'm done. I quit. I'm over it. I give up, because I had to get to that space of trying to fight whatever it is that I was still trying to hold on to. But I had to get to that low point and just say, I'm done. I give up. I quit. And it was brought to me in that moment, the roadmap to a new platform. Because sometimes you got to quit the game in order to start a new one, you know? And that's where I feel a lot of people in society don't necessarily have well, I would say they have a negative association with giving up, or a negative connotation with that,
Right.
because everything in our society is bent on, you just keep going, you just keep going. And that goes especially within our society as Black, as melanated individuals. So it's of course, strength and resiliency are all admirable qualities and something that I would say, yes, we should have a level of. But we are all human, and there are some things that are extremely overwhelming, and it's okay to just say, I don't have it. I don't have it right now. I can't. Whatever that means to you, whether it's just cutting everything off or whatever that means, it's just I can't do it anymore, and it's perfectly okay to quit and give up. You know what I mean? It's nothing wrong. You're not a loser. You're not less of a person. You're not defected. You're actually doing some of the most courageous, bravest things that you can do is realizing that I've reached my limit and I can't do this anymore.
And yeah.
So that's one thing I would like to impart. And, sit with that however long it takes you to sit with it. And I'm sure based off of my experiences and other experiences that that's when the healing and the ushering comes in, and then you'll be surprised what start just swooping you up, and then you're like, well, wait a minute, and then next thing you know, you're in a new space, and you're in a new reality, and or have a little more strength and resiliency for the next time that you didn't necessarily thought you had from the last one.
Absolutely. Because it is going to be like you said, because it's a journey, and it
Oh yeah,
continues.
it ain't gonna never stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, even death is the next. You know what I'm saying? Like the next move. So it ain't. This thing gonna keep rocking and rolling.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Troy, I definitely want to say thank you for taking the time to share your story. This is what it was all about. It just coincides perfect timing of this being Men's Health Month. And we're definitely touching in on that. And again, giving the opportunity for voices to be heard, their stories to be told, and people need to hear them. And so I appreciate you taking the time. Looking forward to checking in with you a little later as well, see how things are going. But I thank you, brother, for your time. And thank you for sharing your story.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for creating a platform. Keep doing what you're doing. And if at any point you feel like you want to give up, it is okay. But hey, for us, keep fighting the good fight as long as you can. And all the work that you've done thus far and to this point I'm sure it's changed so many lives and will continue to. So we in this together, and I look forward to hearing from you guys, and keep me around.
We'll do. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you.